Hey everyone, Shane here with etrailer.com. Today I have a 2013 Ford F-150 and I want to walk through how to install the Air Lift LoadLifter 5000 air helper springs for the rear axle. Air helper springs are designed to support load in the back of the vehicle when you add weight. The reason we want that is because as we put weight in the back of our vehicle, it's going to drop the back end. We're putting unnecessary stress on our rear axle because our suspension can't handle the weight. When we do that, we raise the front end, our headlights aim up in the air, not at the ground. We have uneven tire wear because our tires turn in. Braking is going to be light and our steering is going to be light. That makes the travel, wherever we're going with that load, it makes it unsafe for driving. So adding the bags is going to make it a lot more safer because we can get the back of our vehicle back up, get the front end back down to our normal ride height. Now that being said, each bag is going to have, we're going to be able to inflate each bag separately, so if we have an uneven load, we can add air pressure to even out the back of our truck on that one side or support that heavier load on that one side. These are going to be manually inflatable. However, there are compressors available that you can get here at eTrailer, and you can get dual zone or you can get single zone. It's going to make it a lot easier to inflate your bags to whatever pressure you're wanting to put in them from the comfort of being inside the vehicle. We're not going to get out, we're not going to have to try to find a hose and an air nozzle or gauge to try to figure out how much air we need to put in. So what our bags are going to look like when they're installed. These are going to be double convoluted bags, and what that means, it's going to look like it has two bags stacked. What it actually is, it's a hollow bag. It's got a metal band right here in the middle, and what that does is it keeps the bag from overlapping itself. It's going to have an internal Jounce bumper, so when you remove your factory one, we're going to have a second one in place inside the bag to make up for it. We're going to have roll plates on the bottom. This is to help protect the bag when it's actually being used. Brackets are all going to be a steel black powder coat finish. Really going to help resist any rust or corrosion and stay looking nice for a really long time. The benefit of having bags is going to help support any weight we may be putting in the back of our truck. The nice thing about it is each bag is going to have a line that you run to the back of the vehicle, so you can use these independently. So if we have something that's a little bit heavier on one side of the truck, we can put a little bit more air in that bag to help level out our truck so it's not leaning that way. These are going to have a 5,000 pound load leveling capacity. I do recommend checking the owner's manual of the vehicle. Make sure the vehicle can withstand that amount of weight. You're going to go with the lowest number between the vehicle and the hitch, or the vehicle and the bags. These are also going to have a range of 5 to 100 psi per bag. I do recommend, if you're not using the bags, don't let them go completely flat. Leave about 5 to 10 psi in them. That just keeps pressure on the bags, keeps them from deteriorating. I will say, if you don't have a load in here and you leave them aired up, it is going to make the ride a little bit rougher. So when you're not using them, let the air out, but keep about 5 to 10 pounds in per bag. Before we get into our installation, we're going to take a few measurements and we're going to get into some of the important reasons why airbags are beneficial. Let's start with our measurements. Without the truck loaded, without any weight on it, we're going to measure from the center of the wheel ground up to the bottom edge of our fender. We're going to do that in the front and the back. What we want to do is we want to take note of that measurement so that when we put our airbags on, when we add weight to the back, we can air our bags up to get us back to that height. So from the ground up to the center, we're at 39.25 in the back. So that's going to be our factory ride height. Let's go ahead and take a measurement of the front. In the front, we're at 37.5. Now we've added some weight in. We've got about 1,100 pounds in it. Let's go ahead and take another measurement of the front and the back and see what we come up with. In the back, we're at just under 37.5. And if you remember, we were at 39.25, so we've dropped a couple inches. What that does is, without having bags on, your axle's having to make up for what your suspension can't handle. When you do that, it puts unnecessary wear and tear on it. It's also, as it drops the back, it's on your leaf spring, it's going to pull up on the front leaf spring roll and it's going to lift the front of the vehicle. What that does is it affects your braking, your steering, your tire wear, and your headlight aim. Here in the front, we've raised it about a ½ inch, which isn't a whole lot. It's actually right in where we want to be. But again, we've only got 1,100 pounds on there. With this vehicle, it'll actually, the gross axle weight rating is actually 4,000 pounds. So if we get closer to that 4,000 pounds, our front end's going to come up even more. Our headlights are going to aim out instead of down at the ground, and it's going to make it unsafe for driving. As we raise our front end, or uneven tire wear, what happens is the tires will actually turn in like this. So you're actually getting all of your wear on the outside of your tire. So then you're going to have to replace your tires. Your braking is going to be light and your steering is going to be light. It's going to make it very unsafe for driving. When we put airbags on, it allows us to get the back of the vehicle back up, brings our front end back down, so everything is riding as it should. Another nice thing about airbags, what they do is they help with a lot of body roll and sway. So if we're carrying something in the back of our truck with airbags, it's going to help keep our truck level. Because again, without airbags, our suspension can't handle it, so our body wants to move like this as we turn a corner because our weight is shifting. With airbags, we can keep that upright, flat, so we don't have as much body roll and sway. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take it out on our test course and show you what actually happens without our airbags installed with weight in the back of the truck. So the first part of our course, we're going to go over some speed bumps that we have set up. Some of them are going to be uneven, some of them are going to be together. And this is going to simulate going on uneven or unlevel ground. And right away, I can notice that, or I noticed that as the truck moves back and forth, it takes a minute for it to settle. When we put airbags on, as it supports that weight, when we're going over these different bumps on our unlevel terrain, we're not going to have so much of that body movement, so it's going to settle a lot faster. It's going to make our ride much more comfortable. Now on the big part of our parking lot, the flat side, we're going to try to get up to about 25 to 30 miles an hour, and we're going to do some S-turns and see how the body rolls with that weight shifting. What it does is it feels like the vehicle is kind of leaning. Now again, we only have about 1,100 pounds in here, but you know what this vehicle can handle, if we get up to the closer to the weight that the vehicle can actually handle, we're going to feel that a lot more, and it's going to make the ride a lot more uncomfortable. With our airbags installed, we got about 35 to 40 psi in each bag, same amount of weight. Remember our measurement without any weight in the back, normal ride height without the bags installed, we were at 39.25, and with that amount of pressure, we're right at 39.25, so we're back up to normal ride height. What that's going to do, bring our back end up, it's going to push our front end back down. Headlights are going to aim at the road. We're not going to have uneven tire wear on the front end. We're not going to have light steering or light braking. Airbags are also going to help support our suspension, or what our suspension can't handle, so that we're not putting unnecessary stress on our rear axle. Now we'll go ahead and measure the front, and we're back at 37.5. So as I mentioned, headlights are going to be down the road. It's going to make it a lot safer for us to haul something in the back of our vehicle because we can adjust that for the weight of our load. Now with our airbags installed, same weight in the back of the vehicle, we're going to go ahead and go through our test course again and see how it handles. Right off the bat, I can feel that the back of the truck is more supported. I don't have as much back and forth movement. It kind of settles much quicker with that support, with the support of the airbags on there. Go ahead and go through our slalom course. And I can definitely tell we're not getting near as much body roll. Our vehicles want to stay upright. So again, it's going to make it a much more comfortable ride. As far as the installation process, pretty simple and straightforward. It's going to come with all the necessary hardware. I do recommend removing your spare tire. It's going to make the process a little bit easier. As far as cutting anything, the only thing that we really have to trim is there's going to be a small bolt on the passenger side line bracket. That back side has to be cut off, but other than that, there is not going to be any drilling or cutting, welding required. Now that we've gone over some of the features, let's go ahead and get it in the shop and show you how to get them installed. To start our installation, it's going to be easier if you remove your spare tire. We're going to come to our factory Jounce bumper. We're going to take a 13mm socket. There's a bolt that runs right up in the center into the frame rail. We need to take each side off. Once we get our bolt out, we're going to remove our Jounce bumper on each side, and it will not be replaced or reinstalled. Next, we need to start getting our bags ready to go. What I like to do is, you can see I have the table. I have my parts set up. In our kit, we're going to have a left side and a right side. The bags are universal, it doesn't matter which side. But when we come to our brackets, we are going to have a left and a right side. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our roll plate. You'll notice it's kind of caved in there. We are going to put that down so the rolled side is towards the bag. We're going to line it up with the holes. We're going to take this bracket, and it's going to have an L or an R on it. Left is going to, or L is going to be for left side, driver's side. Obviously, right R is going to be for right side. We're going to put it down. You notice these holes. We want that facing up. We're going to have some Allen head bolts. We're going to install one in each one of the holes. Once we get them installed, we're going to come back and tighten them and then torque them to the specifications in the instructions. Once we get that bracket on, we're going to take our air fitting. It already has a sealer on the threads. We're going to hand thread it into place. Take a 13mm wrench or socket. We're going to turn it 1.5 more times. We're going to repeat that same thing with the other bag. Next, we're going to come over to our driver's side. We're going to take this bracket. You can see the tabs. We have our left side bracket. Where your Jounce bumper was, some models may not have the actual weld nut in the frame rail, but the kit is going to come with a clip that you just slide into the hole. We're going to take this bracket and make sure these tabs are facing up like this. We're going to take our button head screw, flat washer, and we're going to thread it right into place. Once we get that tight, we're going to come back and torque it. We're going to torque it to the specifications listed in the instructions. Once we get one side done, we're going to repeat that on the other side of the vehicle. Now we're going to take our bag assembly that we have our left side bracket on. We're going to line it up just like that. We're going to have small carriage bolts in our kit. We're going to go up from the bottom. And then on the top side, we're going to put a flat washer and a nylon lock nut. We'll have two for each bracket, one on the back side and one on the front side. Once we get those on, we'll come back and tighten them down. 9/16 socket wrench. We'll tighten our hardware down, and then we'll come back and torque it to the specifications and the instructions. When we come back and torque our hardware, you'll notice this back one. These lines here are kind of covering that. It's hard to get a socket on there. So what we can do is we can kind of pull out on this just a little bit. We want to make sure we don't damage that line. or you can take this nut out or this bolt out that's holding this bracket on and push them out of the way while you torque it down. Next, we're going to get our lower bracket put together. You're going to have a plate that looks like this. You want this facing away. We're going to slide it over. We're going to put a flat washer on each one. Then we're going to put a nylon lock nut. We'll take a 9/16 socket, we'll tighten them, and then we'll torque them to the specifications and the instructions. We're going to take a zip tie. We want to tie up these lines together so they're not touching. We're going to take this lower bracket. This side, right here, needs to fit in between your two U-bolts on your suspension. Like that. We need to take our roll plate and get it put underneath on our bag. Like that. On our driver's side only, you're going to notice there's 3 holes on each side of the bracket. On our driver's side, we're going to use this inside one here and the one inside here. And that's so that when we drop our bolt down, put our bracket on, it's away from this U-bolt bracket here. Again, this is only on the driver's side. On the passenger side, we will be using the outside holes. Then you'll notice on the bottom of our bracket, we're going to have 2 oblong holes and 2 regular size holes. We're going to be using the regular size hole at the very back and the oblong hole on the front. Hex nut or hex bolt, lock washer, and flat washer. We'll go up through the plate, or the bracket on the bottom, our roll plate, into our bag. And we can come back and tighten and torque them to the specifications and the instructions. On our passenger side, this bolt that sticks out, we're going to have to cut that off. I'm just going to use a cutting wheel. Now we're going to install our carriage bolts. On the front side, we're going to install 2 long ones. On the back side, on the inside hole, we're going to install a long one. We're going to make sure we go in between here, in between this hard line and this soft line. And on our outside rear one, it's going to be a little bit shorter. That one's going to go behind the line. Now we'll come back and we can install our hardware going up to our bag. Again, you want to make sure that bracket is in between your 2 U-bolts. Then we'll come back and we'll tighten those up. Once you get them tight, come back and torque them to the specifications and the instructions. On our passenger side where we cut that bolt off, you're going to have a bracket that looks like this. We're going to slide it over our bolts. This. We're going to put on the back side, flat washer, and then a nylon lock nut. On the front side, we're going to put on this spacer, then we're going to put on our flat washer and nylon lock nut. Next, we're going to have a bracket that looks like this. On our passenger side, it's going to go on the inside. We're going to slide the bracket over our carriage bolts. We're going to put on a flat washer. and a nylon lock nut on each end. Then we'll come back and we're going to tighten our hardware. One thing to keep in mind is we want to go evenly front to back. So as we tighten them, we'll do a few turns on this side and then come back and do this one. Then we'll come back and we'll torque our hardware to the specifications and the instructions. For our driver's side, we're going to have 2 of these brackets. You're just going to repeat the process for installing these. Now, the instructions are only showing this one line. If you notice, this line here is actually right up against that bolt here too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop that little clip off of the U-bolt. Now the wire loom's not going to come in your kit. You really don't have to use it this way. You can use whatever you want to protect that. I'm going to put some wire loom on there so that it doesn't rub, because this line's pretty soft. I'm going to put some wire loom on here like this just to cover that up. Make sure that line doesn't get damaged. And then with that clip off there, I'm going to pull the line this way just a little bit. I'm going to take another zip tie and I'm going to zip tie it right here. That'll keep it loose off of that bolt, and then we don't have to worry about it getting damaged. Like that. And we can come back, cut off our access on our zip ties. Next, we're going to take our heat shield on our passenger side where our exhaust runs up next to our bag. We're going to be installing this onto our exhaust pipe. We're going to take these short tabs, we're going to bend them like this, and then like that. It's going to sit right there. You have some clamps like this, go around our exhaust. Next, we need to install our air lines. It's going to come with one line, 2 ends on it like this. We're going to take those 2 ends, we're going to meet them together, and we're going to find the center. Once we find center, we're going to cut it in half. That's going to give us an equal line on each side. Next, we're going to install our inflation valves. We need to determine where we're going to be mounting them on our bumper. We are going to have to drill holes. You just want to keep in mind wherever you're going to mount them, they're not going to interfere with using the bumper, standing on it, or putting your feet on it, or whatever it is. What I like to do is typically like to put them about here and here. That way they're not going to get in the way of anything, and they got easy access. You can put them both on one side. I like to try to keep them separate. It makes it a little bit easier to keep in mind which side is going to which bag. So I think I'll go here and here. Gives me an idea. Now let's go ahead and run our lines and get them back here, and then we can drill our holes. When routing these, we want to make sure we're staying away from anything hot or moving. The end of your line that we cut off, you want to make sure it's cut flush. Take your fingers and just rub them like that. It's going to take the burrs off of it. On the driver's side, you'll notice we have a factory wiring that running across our frame rail. I'm going to go ahead and follow that up like this. We're going to take this end, we're going to push it down in top of our valve that's coming from the top of our airbag. You want to push it in until you feel it seat all the way in there. Give it a little tug, make sure it's seated in good. Then we'll come back with a couple of zip ties and we can zip tie this line onto our factory wiring. Next we'll take a 5/16 drill bit and we're going to drill out the location where we're going to be mounting our inflation valve. So you're probably going to have some extra line. I suggest not cutting that off. You can see I kind of looped it up, zip tied it to some factory wiring here. The reason is if we ever have an issue with our line leaking at our bag, we can pull that line out, recut it, and we know we're going to have plenty. We're going to take our valve. We're going to put on a nut. Go ahead and thread that all the way down. And we're going to put on a star washer. We're going to feed it into our hole. On the outside, we're going to put on a rubber washer, a flat washer, and a nut. And then we can tighten the nut on the inside to pull that valve in just a little bit. So it's not sticking out as much. We can adjust it how we want. My passenger line, I did just a little bit different. Because of our exhaust right here, and then we don't have any factory wires to go on top of there, what I did is I actually ran it through the frame rail and right out of the hole right above the bag. You're going to have a heat shield like this that goes over your line. We're going to put that on first. Then we'll push our line into the top of our valve on top of our bag. Next we're going to add about 50 pounds or 50 psi into each bag, and then we're going to check for any leaks. Next we're going to take some soapy water and we're going to spray anywhere where we can put in air or it comes out. So we're going to be putting it here and then at the top of our bags. What we're looking for is a lot of small bubbles to be forming. Looks like we're good there. Looks like we're good there. Go ahead and check our other side. If we see bubbles, what you can do is you can let all the air out. You're going to pull up on the line. This ring right here on the top, you take a wrench, just big enough to go around the line, pull up on the line, use the wrench, push down on that, push down the line, then pull it out. And you can clean up the end of that line a little bit. Once you've tested everything, determine you don't have any air leaks, go ahead and reinstall your spare tire and you're ready to go. It's going to do it for a look at and installation on the Air Lift LoadLifter 5000 air springs on a 2013 Ford F-150.